Welcome to the Fieldhouse here in New York. My name is Greg Amsinger. This is a crystal ball conversation. We have a unique situation in college football right now with USC losing Saturday night to Oregon State. It's clear we have two undefeated teams, both from the same conference. We have Michigan sitting at number 2 behind Ohio State. Now, the question here is what happens at the end of the regular season if both teams are undefeated? If Michigan were to barely lose, would there be a rematch January 8th in Glendale, Arizona for the BCS National Championship game? To help me out with this discussion, I'm joined by our CSTV college football insider Brian Curtis, former Kentucky quarterback Tim Couch, former Maryland quarterback Scott ZOLAK. Scott, what do you think? Should there be a rematch, or do you think a Big East team should get it?
Well, it depends on the outcome of that game. I think Ohio State has to smash Michigan. And if they beat Michigan by a lot, you can make a case for any one of these Big East teams that remain undefeated. Even Rutgers. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but it gets Ray Rice and the Heisman. All of a sudden, if one of these Big East teams runs the table undefeated and Ohio State smashes Michigan, you can't say that you want a rematch because Michigan didn't, they didn't
so
pony up in that game.
So it's based on a smash.
It's got to be a smash. And it's got to be the number 1 ranked team, whether that be Michigan or Ohio State. Whoever's the top team's got to roll the number 2 team. And if there's an undefeated team, they got to play for the title.
The issue comes down to this. Clearly, if that game was a blowout, that kind of changes the conversation. But let's say this game was within 15 or so points, and Ohio State beats Michigan. That's a blowout
against those two teams.
Well, I think Michigan would still deserve a rematch shot at the national title. And
if they lose by 15.
That's right. And I'll tell you why. Because Michigan would finish the season 11-1 with their lone loss coming at the hands of the almost unanimous number 1 team in the country in Ohio State. I just don't think an undefeated West Virginia, Louisville, or Rutgers team is deserving of the spot simply based on their strength of schedule. I mean, those guys don't play anybody this year besides playing each other. And I don't care that they finished undefeated. I look at, did they beat quality opponents, and I don't think any of them could say they did.
I agree with Brian. If you look at West Virginia and Louisville, I don't think their strength of schedule is strong enough to consider them as a national title contender. I think if you're going to put a one-loss team in a national title game, why not go to the best conference in America that everybody agrees with? You got Auburn, you got Florida. If you're going to put a one-loss team in, put one of those teams in and let them compete for the national title.
But those teams beat each other up. Getting back to the Big East, what if West Virginia did what they're doing right now, Brian? They blow out Louisville, who's undefeated, at Louisville. They go and blow out USF. They go and blow out Pitt. They go and blow out Rutgers. All good football teams above 500. That's not enough for you.
It's not, because when you look at what Florida's going to do, if Florida's going to finish the season with just 1 loss, they would have played at minimum 5 teams ranked in the top 25. If West Virginia blows out all those teams, they would have played 2. That would have been Louisville and Rutgers, and that's it. Their non-conference schedule is very weak. It's not their fault that the other teams in the Big East aren't strong. But again, you got to look at who these teams beat on the way. Michigan went on the road to South Bend and absolutely destroyed the then number 2 team ranked in the country, in Notre Dame, a month or so ago in the season. So I just cannot see any scenario, unless Michigan for somehow ends up with 2 losses on the season, losing for Ohio State, that a Big East team gets in. And if you look at the BCS standings as they are, the top 3 teams going into this Saturday's play, Ohio State, Michigan, and USC, were so far ahead of everybody else. So drop USC out of that picture, and Ohio State and Michigan, according to the BCS standings, are so far ahead, I just can't see anybody else jumping up.
I hope for football fans all over it's not a rematch, because if there's an undefeated team in America coming out of the Big East, they deserve to play in that national championship game. That's my opinion. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face. We'll get the answer January 8th in Glendale, Arizona for the BCS National Championship game. If you want more college football talk, join us every Wednesday at 7 Eastern for Crystal Ball, presented by Xbox Live.